What's up, RoyalSpartan Tribe? This is RoyalSpartan125 back for yet another great reaction. Okay, this is part 4, Greater Terran Union, Stellaris Invicta. Okay, I've been meaning to get back to this for a while. I really did enjoy the other ones. And yeah, there's not really much to say. I mean, I've seen the other 3 parts, so good to get back to it and back to this. Very interesting. I mean, I've done like information ones before, but it just feels like a big information dump. They just dump a lot of information on you and that's it. And it's like, huh? But this one, I don't know what it is. It's just the way they do it. It just interests me. It's strange, very strange. But I like it, so. I just want to remind you that I do have a second channel, RoyalSpartan Take Two. Do movie, TV, and anime reactions on there. And trailers probably as well. I'm going to start to do trailers maybe. And yeah, so we'll go over there and check it out. And who knows, you might like it if you like reaction videos. I like movie reaction ones. TV reaction ones, whatever. Okay. So let's jump it. Here we go.
As the Greater Terran Union entered the latter half of the 24th century, the era was marked by a dramatic expansion of the nation's wealth and prosperity. Terraforming techniques pioneered throughout the core systems were brought to the Outer Rim, part of a great new colonization initiative that developed the last remnants of the old frontier. The oldest core worlds, Triumph, Acadia, Elysium, and Yggdrasil, which for centuries had been the most prominent colonies in the Union, were now matched or even surpassed by those in the Outer Rim or other border territories.
Nice.
Even Earth itself was now merely the first among equals. The Vaikunta system, once home to a scattered collection of settlements sponsored by the Greater Indian Commissariat, had grown to become an economic powerhouse and the single busiest port in the Union. Tens of thousands of interstellar transport ships, cargo haulers, tankers, and other civilian craft transited through Vaikunta each day, the sole link between the Union's core and its possessions in the Outer Rim. The system's capital city, Karma, was quickly favored by analysts and science fiction writers alike as a candidate for the Greater Terran Union's first ecumenopolis,
Science fiction
perhaps
writers.
even within the next few centuries. On the Outer Rim, the terraforming of Scorpio 3 from a desolate Arctic wasteland into a verdant world of lush plains and great oceans set the stage for one of the greatest migrations in human history.
So they still have science fiction writers in the future. You know what I mean? I wonder what science fiction looks like then, in that time. Yeah, when they've got all the stuff is science fiction now. In that time, yeah, it exists pretty much. So how much? You know, what would they use for science fiction then? Strange. I mean, science fiction writers who are writing books about this story favor of this city. Is that what it is? Is that what you meant? That's what I'm trying to think. Like, why would you need science fiction writers in the future when they've got all this stuff? We've already got all the technology and stuff. Okay.
Spearheaded by the Eurasian Commissariat, hundreds of millions of settlers departed for the newly renamed Volga colony in the Rodina system. In a matter of decades, it grew rapidly to become a beacon of civilization in what had once been considered a backwater territory of the GTU. The glittering cityscape of Novaya Moskva, home to some of the Union's greatest universities and skyscrapers, quickly became a symbol of Terran power.
Wow.
In 2358, it was named the capital of the newly established Aurora Commissariat, Jewel of the Outer Rim. Even the fortified Thermopylae Commissariat, named for the enormous battle station that once guarded against the Phyraxian Union and Rixian Galactic Directorate, was transformed into a thriving center of industry and commerce. But progress here had come at a cost. In 2362, the National Council and Assembly authorized the Phyraxian Protection Act. Its goal was primarily to remove the remaining Phyraxian population living on worlds conquered and annexed by the Greater Terran Union. While many had hoped the Phyraxians might become productive and loyal citizens as the Wasari had done, former Phyraxian worlds had been marked by constant civil unrest and bombing campaigns, likely funded by the Phyraxian Union.
Yeah.
Forced from their homes to make way for human colonists, Phyraxian refugee convoys departed for the Republic of Polenian States before attempting to return to their own nation.
Wow.
Even as the situation with the Phyraxians threatened the prosperity of the border commissariats, disturbing reports emerged from the world of Tlalocan in the Atslan system. The site of an ecological disaster early in the Greater Terran Union's colonization history, the population had been forced to endure a harsh desert environment not suited to large-scale settlement. In 2363, it was discovered that elements of Tlalocan's population had been experimenting with illegal genetic modification technologies,
Yikes.
modifying their DNA and, in essence, creating a new subspecies of humanity. These changes were often unpredictable, and affected individuals could suffer debilitating side effects or heightened physical abilities. The forced sterilization of the so-called human clerus was briefly considered, but few supported such an extreme action against a population that was still, for all intents and purposes, human.
Yeah, kind of brings it home about like mutants and things, X-Men and all that, like people with physical abilities that normal humans don't have.
In 2365, Terran reconnaissance ships deployed to monitor the Perinisti Union on the other side of Terran space began reporting strange fleet movements. The Terran-Perinisti border had been heavily patrolled by both sides since the end of the war in 2304, but now Perinisti warships had been redeployed elsewhere. The Telekur, a scattered race of marauders who for centuries had terrorized the Perinisti and others in their region of the galaxy, had seemingly united under a great Khan and embarked on a period of expansion unprecedented in their history. Unprepared to meet this new threat, the Perinisti Union attempted to normalize diplomatic relations with the GTU. Borders were briefly opened and embassies and consulates founded, but as the Perinisti lost system after system to the advance of the Great Khan, waves of refugees sought protection within the Greater Terran Union. The borders were again closed, and the Perinisti were left to oppose the Great Khan alone.
Yeah, so they sought, like peaceful. Maybe they thought bringing them in first. Once the borders were open, maybe like go into talks, maybe bring them into the Terran Union. But then they began to lose system after system. The Terran's like, nah, you know what? Let's just cut them loose, yeah? Especially when refugees started pouring in. They're like, no. We have enough mouths to feed, yeah? Don't need more. Sorry. You're not citizens, therefore you don't get to stay. Sorry. There it goes.
By 2381, the Greater Terran Union's peacetime complacency was shattered. The Republican Polenian States, a puppet government intended to serve as a buffer state between the GTU and the Algan Republic, finally collapsed. Despite the presence of Terran advisors, a violent uprising supported by members of the Polenian military overthrew the civil government, and its worlds rejoined the Algan Republic. This revolution, clearly sponsored by the Compact, was believed by Terran High Command to be the precursor to a renewed offensive, and once more, fleets and armies were mobilized in anticipation of war against the Algan Republic, Rixian Galactic Directorate, and the Phyraxian Union. On the far side of the GTU, the situation was no less dire. The Perinisti, not yet fully recovered from their previous defeat and unable to stop the advance of the Telekur, formally surrendered. With an invasion of the GTU by the Great Khan seemingly imminent, the nation prepared for a war on two fronts.
Yikes.
In 2384, hoping to secure a swift victory through a preemptive strike, the Greater Terran Union declared war on the Compact and advanced into the territories of the Algan Republic. Dozens of systems were seized, but the campaign was frustrated by the same hit-and-run tactics that had plagued Terran Fleet Command throughout the previous war. After 2 years of war against the Compact, and the lingering threat of invasion by the Telecorps, miraculous news reached the GTU that the Great Khan had been seemingly murdered by one of his chief lieutenants.
Yikes.
The Khanate survived his death, and the Perronisti remained their subjects, but as the new Khan focused his attention on consolidating power and their existing territory, this threat to the Greater Terran Union was ended for the foreseeable future.
Tell you what, they got lucky. They got really lucky. I mean, the Khan guy got murdered, so obviously the next guy needs to like consolidate his power and, you know, and solidify everything. That makes sense. Yeah, they're so lucky though. I mean, they that could have been the end of the GTU, yeah. You know, like if another war had started from the other side and they only come together and just would have squashed them. Yeah, that was lucky.
The death of the Khan freed up resources that were badly needed on the front, and by 2392, the Greater Terran Union had pushed into the central territories of the Beneficial Compact. Even the homeworld of the former united clans of Skiron had been liberated, and hope prevailed across the Union that the power of the Compact had finally been destroyed for good. In the largest planetary invasion ever attempted, hundreds of divisions took part in the Battle of Nemirium, a brutal but decisive campaign that seized one of the Algan Republic's greatest remaining strongholds. In 2399, the Algan capital system had been taken, and the Compact surrendered.
Nice.
In the wake of the Greater Terran Union's victory, former Algan and Skiron systems and territories were granted independence under the authority of a new nation, the Union of Nemirium. A puppet state under the control of the GTU, much in the same way as the failed Republican Polenian states, the Union of Nemirium was far more heavily centralized, and GTU advisors were present in every facet of the government's operation.
Yeah.
The Algan Republic, reduced to a scattered few systems, had finally been broken beyond repair. If the Compact was ever to pose a threat to the GTU again, it would be dependent on the will of the Phyraxian Union and the Rixian Galactic Directorate. While the war had unleashed a level of nationalistic zeal unprecedented in the history of the Greater Terran Union, it had also emboldened the increasingly violent human clerists. On Tlalocan, members of human clerist supremacy groups and GTU loyalists battled openly in the streets. When clerist extremists conducted a massacre within a popular shopping complex, High Command was forced to act. Tlalocan's moon, Mictlan, was established as a planet-wide penal colony, and every member of the human clerist forcibly relocated there. Until a means of reversing their genetic abnormalities was discovered, the entire human clerist population would be detained and monitored. The collapse of the Republican Polenian state, the rise of the Great Khan, and the latest Great War against the Compact had dominated the affairs of the Greater Terran Union, but it was in the Kasserine system that the future of the nation had been forever altered. In a remote area of the star system, one restricted to civilian traffic since the earliest days of colonization, the derelict that had captivated the GTU's greatest scientific minds for nearly 2 centuries had quietly been reactivated. In doing so, the prevailing theory that had guided the development of the entire nation was confirmed. The device was some sort of gateway, constructed by an unknown race millennia ago, that allowed for near instantaneous travel across the galaxy. If this device was indeed used by the Tyrum to invade the Earth, then the way to their homeworld was now open.
Oh boy. Yep. They're coming. They're coming. Revenge. Oh, it's coming. Next war is coming. Revenge is coming. Yes. Yeah, I like this one. It's a little bit harder for me to remember everything, to be honest. It's been a while. You know, I've done like part 3, part 4. It's like, okay, I'm getting back into it. Yeah, so I enjoyed this one though. Just like the last one. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more happening. Wars propping up all over the place. Possible war on 2 sides. That was very lucky they dodged that one. Because you take it, what would have happened if the Khan had have attacked as well, yeah? I don't know if they would have been able to win that. It's possible, you know, but a war on 2 fronts, two different wars at the same time, even. Okay, hope you enjoyed this. Hope you enjoyed the reaction. And until next time, I am out of here.